President Cyril Ramaphosa says he's looking forward to engaging Russia's President Vladimir Putin. Putin's landslide election victory, winning another 6 years at the helm of the Russian Federation. Ramaphosa says this demonstrates the people's faith in his leadership. Joining us now is Russia's ambassador to South Africa, Mikhail Petrakov. Ambassador, thank you so much for your time on the program this evening. As you've just heard, our president is describing Mr. Putin's re-election as a demonstration that the people of the Russian Federation have faith in the leadership of President Putin. But that sounds like rather a naive view, given that only 8 people ran against him. 1 was excluded, another was vilified, and the others seem to have realized they had no chance running against him.
Good evening, and thank you for having me in your studio. Indeed, that was a landslide victory for President Putin. He got nearly 77% out of 60% of those people who voted. Very big majority, and I think the argument which you put about people having no other choice but to vote in favor of him does not hold water, because, as you said, there were 7 other candidates, and people really have trust in the president. They consolidated behind President Putin, and the outcome of the elections reflected the fact that they put faith particularly in this person who has been leading the country for the last years and who will continue leading it for the next 6 years.
Ambassador, what's being done about these reports of ballot stuffing and other cases of election fraud?
John, Russia is the only country, I understand, in the world which puts TV cameras on each and every ballot polling station in the country. About 1,000 polling stations, and more than 1 million people were watching online the process of voting throughout the day of 18th of March. Yes, there were attempts, isolated attempts to stuff booths, but they were immediately identified and the situation was rectified. Altogether, the number of violations was quite small, and it did not influence the outcome of the elections. Besides, there were over 1,000 international observers present at the elections, so the elections were clean and democratic.
Many leaders who have cordial relations with Russia still want to know about who poisoned Sergei Skripal. What really happened there, Ambassador?
I think that's a story which requires a deeper look into it. Sergei Skripal, who was a former British spy, and his daughter, Russian citizens, got poisoned in the city of Salisbury by a toxic chemical agent. This chemical substance, the samples of this chemical substance, are actually kept 7 kilometers away from Salisbury in a British military facility called Porton-Down. That fact was confirmed by the Foreign Secretary Johnson the other day publicly in an interview. So what was the British reaction to the event? Russians did it. We said, no, we have nothing to do about this. If you have any doubts, let us go to the Organization for Prohibition of Chemical Weapons in The Hague and follow the legal way stipulated in a convention which we both signed and to which we are both our countries are party to. The British reaction was confess and repent within 24 hours or else. We said, stop talking with us in this colonial language of ultimatums. The British reaction was Russia should shut up and go away, quote unquote, by the British Defense Secretary. Now I'm asking the viewers who are watching me now, what would be the South African reaction to this sort of interaction? Mind you that we were asking for cooperation and expressed our preparedness to cooperate, asking our British partners to give us samples of the toxic stuff and information, reminding them that the investigation was still on by Scotland Yard, but we did not get any information on that. So we have nothing to do with this poisoning. This is not our way, and as I've said, we are prepared to cooperate in the investigation, particularly considering that Yulia Skripal is the Russian citizen, and we do not have any access or any information about her.
A final question to you, Mr. Skripal, rather Ambassador, because we have just watched pictures of our former president, Jacob Zuma, with your current re-elected leader, Vladimir Putin, and we know that the countries have enjoyed a close relationship through BRICS over the last few years. An expectation was created during Jacob Zuma's administration that we were going to build nuclear plants here, and that Russia was perhaps going to get the contract to be able to do that. There's now been some sort of backtracking on that with Cyril Ramaphosa in power. What are Russia's expectations? What are the expectations of Vladimir Putin's administration with regard to Russia's involvement in any nuclear program here in South Africa?
When my president came to South Africa back in 2013 on a visit on the margins of the BRICS summit, he proposed Russia's assistance in establishing the independent nuclear industry in South Africa, which included, of course, the erection of nuclear power plants. But it is entirely up to South Africa to decide what you need and what you do not need. The Russian nuclear operator Rosatom, together with our other contenders, was participating in the work conducted throughout the recent years on the identifying of a possible vendor for the contract. As I've said, we are ready to cooperate. I think we are the best in terms of building nuclear power plants and other nuclear facilities. Maybe my other diplomatic colleagues will not agree, but this is my position. And I again repeat, it is up to South Africa to decide what type of energy you need and in what volume.
Thank you for talking to us. Russian Ambassador Mikhail Petrakov, live to us there from our Pretoria studios.